So, welcome to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio, and today is Thursday, May the 22nd, 2025. And welcome, Susan Bingham. Good to see you. How's the moving process going?
It just got finished. The last truck left this morning.
And how are you?
I am in a state of bright sadness. I'm so happy for the kids.
So you're connected.
And excited for them. And I have no idea what life is going to be like, but they're doing what they need to do and want to do, and they're excited about it. And they've arrived down there. It was a 5.5 hour trip. It was very early morning. I helped get the animals into the crates and saw them off. And I can get back to some projects I've been putting on hold for ages. But I am in a state of, I don't know what, but thanks for asking.
It's understandable, the mixed emotions.
Yeah.
But did I understand your word, Susan, to say bright sadness?
Yeah.
You know, what I hear, what I would define that as what my brain cells say is that's the fruit of your work, that you're connected. And yes, someone's leaving. Gee, there's some sadness in it. And you're staying connected rather than being in a disconnected state where sadness is the only thing possible. That's just,
thanks.
that sounds like you're right on track. Sometimes things don't go the way we want them to go, and there are certainly emotions attached to it. But can I stay connected to that state of love rather than get lost in what destroys the whole mechanism of human life? So nice work.
Thanks. My
That's pretty
daughter-in-law
awesome.
is up here for another month living in a condo that her parents are trying to sell now because they've left, so the parents are going to leave. And she's staying there for another month. And she wrote to me and she said, I feel so guilty taking Jonathan away from you. And I thought, wait a minute. And so she's got some ideas that are totally wrong. I don't see that at all. He needed this. And she's gotten this wonderful job. It's like top of the line professorship at University of Virginia and liaison with the hospital. And she's creating her own department in pediatric rheumatology. And they've given her all kinds of choices about what she wants to do and laboratories and with whom to work. And it's just so exciting. They're like Phoenix. They're rising from the ashes. And, Tim and I will be okay. We don't know what we're going to do next, but we're here with our little family that's with us. And life is so good. So, yeah, I do feel very mixed about it. But gosh, if he said, no, we're going to stay, I would have trouble with that too. Yeah. So you're one of my anchors. Wherever I go, you're there. It's like Naomi talking to her mother-in-law.
Well, I think it's just awesome that you're connected rather than needing to use chemical means to hide things from yourself to carry forward. It's just,
thanks, Michael.
that's the highest state that I think we can move right up there with being in that mind of Christ. That's the whole objective is to delete the rest of it. That's so nice work.
Thanks. The connections are there. We have so many ways of staying connected, and they're only 5 hours away. My Iraqi family, when I came home, she said, how are you doing? And I said, well, I don't know what I think. I suppose I ought to cry, and I'm sad, but I'm not sad. I'm sad and I'm happy. And she said, well, he's only 5 hours away. When I left Iraq, I thought I'd never see my people again, and I may not. And I thought, perspective, there it is.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah.
Beholding them and a blessing in you too.
Thanks. How are you guys doing? You're about to fly the coop yourselves and run a big retreat.
Urate and Tom arrived last evening about 8:30 or so, and we had a carload of all the foodstuffs and all the herbs and spices and vinegars
Wonderful.
and equipment,
Oh my
and met them
God.
up there last night. So they're at the retreat center getting things prepared, out doing some shopping for fresh organic foods today. And so we'll head up there tomorrow, and intensive will begin tomorrow evening.
Good for you guys. And 9 days. Wow. Yep.
Yeah, I'm
That's
excited about
amazing.
being back in the saddle. It's been since 2020 since I've done intensive, and
I
it
know.
used to be every year at Heartland. I did at least a 65-day intensive.
A
I mean, for
65.
3 decades, 3.5 decades. So it's
Wow.
been strange to be 5 years without an intensive. We did the online ones, and that was pretty awesome, pretty sweet. But
Hmm. Nothing
I'm
like this.
really looking forward to face to face.
Yeah. Jeannie, are you up for it?
Yeah, yeah, I went last night with Michael and it was so challenging not to help them. I mean, like the only thing I could carry in from the car was the salad spinner because everything else weighed more than 10 pounds. So I
Oh,
told Michael, I said, okay, bring the tea bag in here. I can at least set up the tea station.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
she went to pick up a gallon jug of apple cider vinegar, and it's like, Jeannie, that weighs 12 pounds. Put it down, please.
yeah.
And her hands are moving like, well, I have to do something. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
God, that's a tough one. I know,
It
Jeannie. It is
is.
tough. Well, you'll get that all back. Oh man.
Yeah, just 4 more weeks of it. So
How do you feel?
I'm good. I'm doing really well.
How's
So
your
I
energy?
told Michael, I said, let's change. We had been doing what's my pain level from 0 to 10. And I said, let's change that to how well I'm feeling from 0 to 10.
Oh, cool.
That is
That's
a
a
great
great
catch, honey.
idea.
That was,
Yeah. So I
that's
said,
Yeah.
really excellent.
I'm about a 9.5 or 9.75. I'm getting there. I'm not 100% yet, but I'm getting there.
You mean energy wise too.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That is great.
Yeah. And I actually went this morning. I hadn't, our graduating class meets once a month for brunch.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I haven't been since December because of Ryan and then me and everything else. And so I went today and everybody was like, oh my gosh, you look so good after what you've just been through 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah, you do
it
look
was,
good.
it
You
was
do
good
look
to
good.
sit and talk to people.
Yeah.
He always has.
Right, Michael.
Thanks.
You always looks good, but you look good.
Thanks.
Really good.
Well, we had Joe, but he just dropped off. So maybe
I
he'll
was
come
just
right
going
back.
to say, hey, Joe, how are you doing?
But Don's with us.
Yes.
Mm.
Welcome, Donald. Hope all is well in your world. And I have a story that I wanted to share, um, that I came across recently about truth. One of the alternative names in the ancient teachings for the creator is truth.
Mm.
And I thought this, and it's a fairly well-known story. Probably most people are familiar with it, but I just thought I would share it today because, what we've been pursuing, for 15 years, and what we've been focusing on with this whole power person worksheet and the power person dynamic. I talked to someone yesterday who's been doing this work for some time, and their take was, "Oh, that's too long." And 19 pages, it's long, yeah. And my offering was, well, everybody wants in this culture instant gratification, shortcut. I want it done now. And what they're in essence saying is, I want to clean up the multi-generational database called My Body Mind Unit of all unresolved hostility and fear of all of my generations, and I want it done yesterday.
Hmm.
And it's
Right.
not
Who
gonna
doesn't?
it's not gonna be done yesterday.
Right.
I mean, if you just look at the scriptural statements, the sins of the fathers are passed into 3 and 4 generations. That's the unresolved energetic dynamics of 31 lives when you include yourself in that 4 generations. And when you go back just 30 generations, if you do the math, it's 1.6 billion lives. There's a work to be done, and most people don't want to go there. And I thought this little story kind of, fit well into the equation. It says, truth and lie meet one day. The lie says to the truth, it's a marvelous day today. Truth looks up to the skies and sighs, for the day was really beautiful. They spent a lot of time together, ultimately arriving beside a well. The lie says to the truth, the water's very nice. Let's take a bath together. The truth, once again suspicious, tests the water and discovers that it is indeed very nice. They undress and start bathing. Suddenly, the lie comes out of the water, puts on the clothes of truth, and runs away. The furious truth comes out of the well and runs everywhere to find the lie and get her clothes back. The world, seeing the truth naked, turns its gaze away with contempt and rage. Truth returns to the well and disappears forever, hiding in its shame. Since then, the lie travels around the world, dressed as truth, satisfying the needs of society because the world, in any case, harbors no wish at all to meet the naked truth.
Michael, that is
Yes?
one incredible story for right now. It's a little too grim, if you ask me, because it's true.
Yeah, it's true. And hopefully, when people realize that that's what's happening, when, to me, that is a metaphor for stepping out of the lie, for stepping out of denial and into the truth, and really experiencing ourselves as who we are as human beings, and the willingness to face the naked truth. It's time. It's time. And of course, what are the things that destroy the naked truth? The ability to actually formulate constructs in the mind based in truth. What's the what are the conditions required to do that? It's like, if you can't face truth, then what your mind holds and what your perception is based in is a distorted energy. And we call a distorted energy disease.
Mm-hmm.
And until we are willing to face all disease within us, until we meet the conditions required to step into who we are as human beings, really, truly functioning out of love and freeing ourselves of the lie, and recognizing that hostility and fear are the signals that tell us that there's something to be looked at inside of ourselves. Hope that makes sense for everybody. And if anybody's got any thoughts, push that mute button and say hello. If I have when you recognize truth is like a power supply that's beyond anything we could imagine. When we step down from that truth, everybody wants to heal, but who wants to connect to the power supply that means everything unlike love in our own device, our own body-mind unit, is going to start to surface? If you think of vitality being on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're at level 10 vitality, you can't hide anything from yourself. You can't dissociate from content if you're at a level 10 vitality. And so what do we do in order to, I don't want to be responsible for this or that or that. I want to blame them. It's their fault. It's what's happening with them that's making me afraid or terrified or whatever. And we have to meet the conditions in order to produce the result. And that means that the desire to honor truth has got to be paramount. It's got to be number one. And that means that all conversations, when one is in some sort of pain or upset, all conversations based in that pain or upset have to be forgiven, have to be abandoned. So for the energy of healing to move, if I've got, let's say, out there on the pole, a good metaphor, out on the pole in front of my house, there's a power transformer that brings in 550 volts just outside my door. And I say, I want to hook up to that. Well, if I take the wiring in my house and hook up to a 550 volt power supply, my house is going to burn down. I've got to meet the conditions to bring that 550 volt power supply down to the 120 that runs my electronics, that runs my refrigerator. And until I bring the transformer in and connect it, that brings that voltage down. And basically, my take is that the human mind is designed to be the intermediary step that brings the full potential of human life, the full potential of truth into expression within us. Unless there's something, in electronics, there's a thing called a resistor. Interesting, if you want to cut the energy flow in a circuit, you put a resistor in. Interesting that in the Aramaic language, the word Satan means the resistor. It's an internal thing. And when I don't want to face or deal with something, I'll step away from truth and hold that as a belief, and I'll get locked into this state of non-being, losing the experience of myself as the presence of love, and of course wanting to blame the world for that. And to really be honest with oneself, if I step into a situation and my mind still has the ability, even the ability to generate hostility or fear, there's something in me that I need to face that's not based in truth. And I've hooked myself up to the wrong gods. And the objective of this work is to create a conversion, not a conversion into a religion, but a conversion from an hostility and fear-based mind back to the original mind, the 550 volt mind of the active presence of love and that of truth. And of course, that doesn't mean, in that example you gave us with your family moving, and I love the way you said that, Susan, that bright sadness connected to love. And yeah, I got some goals that I would like things to be different, and there's some sadness moving in me too, but sadness doesn't run my life. And if sadness, fear, rage, guilt, grief, drama, and trauma take over a moment in one's life, at that moment, their human lives are gone. And this work is about being restored to our human lives, being restored to who we are as human beings.
Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
what you say makes total sense. And especially right now, I feel as if for many of us listening on the radio show, probably this is true. The use of the tools prepares us. Dr. Tim uses some great words. He says, soften, breathe, allow. And of course, you look at your goals and you find your way into being balanced and well again. And every time I read the paper, I'm going through that process of getting back to who we really all are in the face of what I feel as if is a more and more externally threatening challenge. And maybe there's some error in my thinking, even calling it that, but that's my experience. It's like the waves are getting higher and higher and higher. And I'm still breathing and allowing and holding the intention. Dr. Tim uses that word too. We're reading some great books that use those words. Way of
Right.
Mastery, Course in Miracles. You know the stuff. The challenge is so great that it's like every day there has to be a time of adjustment, allowing, opening, centering, and then being able to go into life again today, just today, being okay when things look very not okay. So what you just said is pretty much summarized what I feel is my daily assignment. And probably all of us are doing that.
Yes, I'm with you. There's no question that there can be some pretty horrendous, horrific things. If we look at history and we look at what's going on, there's some pretty horrific things occurring. The difference is, do I succumb to the fear or anguish in me, or helplessness or hopelessness in me, and blame that for it? Or if that is in my face, do I work through the hopelessness, the helplessness, the fear, the sadness, the grief, the rage in me, so that I bring the possibility of change to that I bring the energy that brings transformation to everything, and recognizing that love is the master solvent, and who can hold to it in these circumstances? It's only someone who's done their work.
Or is doing their work.
Yes. Yeah, of course, I don't know anybody that's arrived. Don, did you have a thought for us? His hand went down. Don, do you have a thought to bring into the equation? Hit your mute button if you do.
No, I'm just still trying to figure out how to get Zoom meetings to play through the Bluetooth speaker. I'm trying the different settings based on what Google told me, but nothing's worked so far. But I had no problem with Needle, but on Zoom I can't seem to do the external Bluetooth speaker, just my earbuds.
Don, do you have Zoom app on your phone? You can go through there, and then you only have to hit a mute button. You don't have to hit *6.
Yeah, no, I do. That's what I'm listing on, is the Zoom app. So yeah, I have the mute button, but that's my issue is trying to get it to play through my external Bluetooth speaker, which I always did before with the Needle. And I'm trying to think if I did it on Blog Talk too. I can't remember. I think so. So anyway, that was my own thought right now.
Okay, cool.
And Joe had texted me. He had something come up on work. He had to go. That's why he disappeared. And welcome, Sally.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I was going, yes, glad you're here, Sally. One of the things that I was going to share with Joe, seeing as how he's close enough, is that the opening. Why is this happening to me again? Workshop, when we do an intensive, is always a free open workshop, and I was going to suggest or invite him to come up and join us for it. And I know everybody that's on the show right now is a little bit distant to show up for a 4-hour workshop, but if you know anybody that's in the Bristol, Abingdon, Virginia area, Bristol, Tennessee, let them know that Saturday morning they'd be welcome to come and join us for Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
You
And
said
that
Saturday
workshop
morning, but we have the first class scheduled like at 1. Is
at 1
that when
o'clock, right?
it's actually going to start? I'm sending Joe a text.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, unless the live process of the intensive moves in a different direction, that's the plan, yes. And I'm looking forward to it. There are times over the years where that workshop, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? I've taught as many as 3 times in a day. And since 2020, I've only actually done it once. So I'm looking forward to getting back to it and seeing what new insights come as that particular arrangement of information comes together. Looking at the work that I've done personally, just how different that workshop's going to be. I'm kind of excited about seeing what comes through, seeing what happens.
Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
I just sent a link to an extraordinary fictional. I didn't know it was fictional until I scrolled down in the information in this video to find out whether this was really true, because it was too good to be true. An interview between Trump and Pope Leo. Now, I knew that Trump had not gone to visit Pope Leo. Maybe he will in the future. But this claimed that not only had he been there, but they had ended up having what they thought was a private one-on-one talk between them, but there were some hot mics around and the whole thing was caught. And this is so complicated and divisive because the interview itself was wonderful. They really had a meeting of minds, the two of them, in this interview. And anyone listening to it without realizing that it wasn't a true dialogue at all,
Right.
would be hopeful that world peace was within sight. Because the things the Pope said, like, for instance, the main thing is, if you have power, you must also serve. You must have power and extend that to the helping of the people who need the help the most. And of course, that's the argument. And I know I'm getting into politics here. The complicated part is anyone on the Republican side listening to that would say, see, this is a wonderful man. Trump is a wonderful man telling the truth here, and he really is very smart, and he gets it, and maybe everything will be all right. On the other side, people would say, wow, did Trump really say and do those things? There's probably some hope. And of course, everybody wants hope, but I'm not sure what the bottom line result would be from a false, it was beautifully done thing here. I sent you the link because it's absolutely mind-blowing how much untruth can look like truth.
Yes.
And
I hear you.
it's so profound. I was so heartened. I was thinking, did this really happen? I have to go back. And I thought he hadn't gone. No, and I checked it out. But how many people are going to check it out? I don't check stuff out. I often repost stuff on Facebook that isn't true. And some of my friends will say, hey, wait a minute, this is fake. Where'd you get this? You better pay attention. And I'll say, oh, no, I did it again. So anyway, this is sort of a tangent, but you're talking about truth. And here was an example of how smoke and mirrors, you use that word, how attractive untruth can be.
Right.
Seductive, really. Okay, well, I should mute myself and let you carry on now.
Okay, well, that's an interesting exercise in awakening, as I hear you speaking about it, I found it interesting that Vance went over to meet with the Pope, and that he got a grand total of 16 seconds. And that was it. While several other world leaders were meeting personally with him. I thought that was kind of interesting. And also that this game of how subtly projection works, and that we can lose our connection to the place where everything we want to bring into the world exists, by believing that having that connection is conditional upon something happening in the world. And my offering is that hope does not spring from a circumstance that might produce a result we want. Hope springs from living from your human life, showing up in your own, my own, our own body-mind unit as active present love, regardless of circumstance. And an example of that comes to mind, and Jeannie had brought it up the other day, was when Jeannie's dad was in the hospital, and, he'd been through a lot. And we went to see him. We had about a half an hour with him before he, and here's a man who hadn't sat up, turned over, stood up, done anything on his own. I mean, they literally, anything that his body, he was 93, anything that his body needed to do, somebody had to do it for him. And we were there when, in that incapacitated state, although he was mentally present, we were able, kibitzing with him, joking with him, showing him pictures of his grandchildren, and feeding him a little bit. And all of a sudden, he just sat bolt upright. This is a body that hadn't done that in well over a year. Looked up to the left as though he were trying to look up into the inside of his own cranium. Took his last breath and laid down.
Cool.
And it was so sacred. It was so sweet. Now, this would be kind of, fit with your comment when you started out with this bright sadness. Would we still like him to be here? I mean, one of the favorite things we did was play dominoes every morning. He loved to do that. And we'd sit and every once in a while, I'll make a comment that he would have made while we're playing dominoes, or Jeannie will make a comment. And it's just out of sweetness and being, rather than out of loss.
Right.
And the only loss we can really experience is the loss of our human lives, the presence of love, from which springs everything that we really want. And of course, if we have enough people in this collective game that we're playing, enough people who've given up the truth of who they are, then it would seem that that higher outcome is impossible.
Yeah.
But in the midst of the impossible and the insane, my take is, if enough minds show up in that connected state of active present love, of hope, then everything is transformed, even death, as we experienced it with Jeannie's dad.
Michael, you said something a little while back about how I'm here doing my work and feeling what I'm feeling, but I'm also still hoping that enough people are going to do it. And you're saying, give that up. Stay only with yourself and do that. And let everything else go. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly. Not exactly. It doesn't mean we can't say, let's gather enough people to bring a transformation around. That's a very reasonable goal.
Yeah.
The thing is, if I load that goal in my mind, and that rings a lie in me that, well, of course, that's impossible. It's not going to happen. It's hopeless. It's hopeless. Then I am not the vote for the outcome that I say I really want. Energetically, if that goal resonates, oh, well, it's hopeless and helpless and I'll just cry and give up, then literally I'm contributing to the result that I say that I don't want. So it isn't that, don't have the goal. Just notice that if the goal resonates anything in your mind, and your mind includes literally, think of an iceberg. Imagine you're using your hands and you're going around your head, and the 10% of the iceberg is when you get down to your shoulders, and the rest is all of your physiology and literally your whole genetic history. And if there's something in that whole history that you refuse to face, that's based in some form of hostility or fear, then it is literally a creative energy that supports the insanity that we're saying, oh, we want to heal this insanity.
Yeah.
And there's the projection that the insanity is in the world rather than in us.
Mm-hmm.
And the resolution's only going to come when enough people will do the work to show up in purity, whatever's happening in the world, to show up in purity, having forgiven. I mean, you think about what our generations have been through. You think about what history has done, the wars, the famines, the slaughters, the abuse, the insanity. And that, of course, is at some level in everybody's genetic history. We've all been connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the key is, and this is the genius of this man, Yeshua, is if you load a goal in your mind and instantly that goal through resonance literally goes through everything in your subconscious, your unconscious, your genes. And if there's anything unlike love there, bingo, it's going to come up as an emotion or as a thought disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So when I load that goal, does it bring something like that up? Yeah, there, now cancel the goal. If I load that goal and it's like all systems go, I am 100% in integrity and congruent with this, then I become part of the energy system that when critical mass is hit, when the leavening leavens the whole loaf hits, that sanity is the way we're going to go, that's when sanity is going to take over the world.
Yeah.
But that field's got to become strong enough.
Oh, that's the word, strong. And I was going to ask you, you talk about levels of vitality. I don't know for sure, but I feel as if in my late age, I'm turning 81 soon. I can't, like, I couldn't lift the heavy boxes that I used to, and I couldn't go down the stairs lickety split with a box. I had to hold a rail, and I thought, I'm in pretty good shape, but this is a different ball game. Does that mean I'm losing vitality? I mean, don't you need incredible vitality to maintain this human life, or not?
Well, my take is it's a balance. And if the hostility and fear-based mind and buying into and blaming the world for it gets stronger, it's like, imagine that we've got someone heading for a cliff and stepping off the cliff means death.
Yeah.
So this person's heading for the cliff. They're 100 feet away. They're 90 feet away. They're 80 feet away. They're 70 feet away. Why are they moving in that direction? Because the energetic, incoherent energies are stronger than the coherent energies. Now, my offering would be someone could step up to 1 foot away from stepping off the cliff, and they can make a shift and make it 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, 100 feet, 200, 500. And so if I buy into, well, it's because of age, remember the quote from the DeCourcy Clinic in Cincinnati and their research on aging, time is not toxic. Time has no effect on human tissue.
About this, and I'm still not with you. I'm hearing.
Yeah. So has no effect on human tissue under any conditions. It is the belief in the effects of time that acts as a poison. So if I recognize that I hold those beliefs, then when I go to step down the steps and go, oh, I have to reach for the railing because I have weakness, I want to take that thought disorder, breathe into it, embrace it, process it, and move it out of the system, because the world has trained me that certain things are going to have certain effects, and they're a lie. Time is not toxic. I'm not feeling like I have to hold on to the railing, and I'm not just skipping down the step with the walk like I used to because of time. I'm doing it because in my genes, in my history, is the unresolved grief and rage and hostility and fear and sadness. And so to recognize each time, like I'll give you an example. For me, I spent the morning, been doing some pretty deep work in the garden before we head off to the intensive. And I made an error. And my mind went into, I came up in a working man's town with, my dad worked in a factory. He was a supervisor in a factory, and everybody that I associated with, I played hockey and baseball with all the kids. That was it. And there was certain language that I look at the language that was my childhood upbringing language in the community, and it's like, why did I ever even hear those words? And those words still sometimes come out of my mouth, which happened this morning. And it was like, Haruka, I need to breathe and let go of that. That's just not where I want. I realize that's in my carbon-based memory. And I want to, each time I notice even the slightest thing based in hostility or fear, I want to remember to reconnect to a state of being and process that energy out. Because that's the energy of weakness and death. And, our culture says it's normal. I mean, just look at watch any two politicians scream at each other in Congress or in the Senate, and the craziness that's going on. That's the stuff that makes death. Am I willing to face everything that has killed? And for me, this was a long time ago, was a request I made of Ruka, is, Ruka, teach me how to breathe, hold love present for, and process through every energy that has ever killed anybody in my bloodline. What led to the death of my parents, their parents, their parents, and theirs, and theirs, and theirs? What kinds of hopelessness, helplessness, grief, rage, sadness, injustice, insanity went on? And, we've got records of times when the people in the world were living to be 800, 900, 1,000 years old. What happened? We bought into the lie, dressed up like truth, and not wanting to face the naked truth. This is in me. This is something I need to process out of my structure to reverse that. It's like, if you take my metaphor of the cliff, most people, the day they're born, are 90 years or less from stepping off the cliff of death. And then we buy into all that the culture teaches us. Everything's imbued in us, the cultural programming, the family programming, the family fears and griefs and rages and all of those things. And if that is never touched or changed in our instrument's going off the cliff by the age of 90 or sooner.
Yeah.
As I walk through the world, am I walking heading for the cliff like the family's done, and that's why they're all dead? Or am I going, oh, no, this one's heading for the cliff, I'm going to change this one? No, literally paying that minute an intention and working to clean it up, working to literally forgive. Again, recognizing the word forgive means to remove that stuff.
I want to tell Jeanie, thank you I was complaining about a leg that wasn't functioning properly, and she said, Louise Hay or someone says, this is because you're fearing going forward or having trouble going forward. And I've thought about that, and the leg is getting better. This morning I woke up. This is the last day my son is going to be here. His boy is driving down tandem with him, and I'm lying in bed. And for the first time in weeks, I'm having a lot of pain in the leg, and it's been much better. But this morning, and I thought, oh, there's Jeanie. She's saying I'm not facing what's about to come, and it was a hard morning in some ways. And so the connection, the physical connection, is true. And this is sort of, I think, a teeny example of what you're talking about. But Michael, for me, it's just I walk fast, and I say, I am 45 years old and I'm in great shape. But those are affirmations, and they're not quite cutting it.
Right. So
So
then maybe a slight shift in thinking
yeah,
is I'm willing to be walking as though I am 45 with the
okay,
vitality and the aliveness and the presence of love that I had then. And I'm not right now. This is the truth. I'm just acknowledging the truth. And I'm willing to face whatever's moving in me that's inhibiting that.
okay,
So
yeah,
it's our thinking or our behaviors based in, and that's why we spent so much time the last few weeks on the codependence work and the power person dynamic, are my behaviors and my attitudes and my current thoughts based in unresolved power person dynamics? Or are they conformed by the principles of living as an actual human being based in conscious, active, present love,
mm,
based in truth? And we've been taught a lot of lies. I mean, who do you know, if we look in the whole culture, who do you know that at least at some point in their lives hasn't lived in the blame game? Look what
oh
they're
yeah,
doing to me.
mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all been imbued with it. I look at my own life and how much work it's been to just lift that mindset, and still sometimes it comes up.
Yeah,
But when I live in blame,
mm,
that's a signal that I'm living in denial, that there's something in me that that is moving in me that I don't like, that I'm feeling that I don't like, that I'm blaming on somebody else. And when I do that, I literally dissociate from the cause of that degradation in myself and make it impossible to change it. Why do I want to face every power person dynamic, every behavior, every little, abuse that they did that I do? Why do I want to face that? Because I get the original of what I engage in. They just get the carbon copy. I may do that little abuse thing to somebody else, and I may be doing it unwittingly,
mm-hmm.
but in truth, I get the original. I'm doing it to myself. And
Right,
and giving those deeply rooted generational patterns up is it's a gigantic piece of work. And people say,
yeah,
well, why would God set it up like that? Well, no, all God did was say, you got free will, do what you like. And, you know, if we look at the way the world has trained all of us, you can kind of get what the world liked. And most of it's what they didn't like. And how much of the world, their whole shtick, their whole conversation is about, you hear them talking about what they don't want. I don't want this, and I don't want that to happen. And I hope this never happens, and I hope that doesn't. And now they've given all their power over to what they don't want. And we need to wake up to what we do want and become responsible for every part of us in our creatorship that has created a cause, created or held a cause that created a result, and then pretended the result was somebody else's fault.
mm,
That example that you shared with us right at the opening of the show today, when you talked about your sons packed up and moving, and and their sadness. Is there a time in your life, if that had been happening, where you've been going, why are they doing this to me? They're just making me so sad. As opposed to, well, I'm staying connected to love, and yes, I have some desires that I'd like them to be here, and I fully support them in the next step in their eternal lives.
That's what it is. Yeah.
The world hasn't taught us to do that very well.
Yeah. There are so many perks with this because Jonathan's been so anxious and so depressed, and now he is just full of joy and excitement. Oh,
That's
boy,
awesome.
it is. It's fantastic. So we were 20 years living a block away from them. But the 20 years I kept journals. I've been doing going through my journals and writing memoirs for God knows who. I don't know what they're for, but I'm reclaiming my life. I often read him sections to remind him of how he needed to make this choice, how much of a struggle it's been for him because it wasn't the right fit for him, good as he was. That's misleading when you're a great surgeon, but you shouldn't be doing it. Oh, man, what a weird thing. Anyway, though, so yeah.
That's why the purpose workshop's so important.
Yeah.
That's totally one of the things
that's
that
exactly
grew out of.
what that is, right?
So many people are so off base in their purpose because they have no clue what their purpose is. Actually, I remember there was a fellow in a workshop years ago, and actually the exact thing that you've experienced with Jonathan. And this guy's mother wanted him to be a doctor, and so he went to medical school. He wanted to be a truck driver. And this guy literally walked the stage, got his degree, went down and handed it to his mother, and went and got a job driving a truck, which is what he wanted to do.
Oh, God. Good for him. Well,
so purpose is such an important part of the whole thing. And most people are just floating out there because the culture, has a purpose for all of us.
Right.
The king has a purpose for everybody, and it sure isn't to fulfill their own purpose. It's to fulfill the king's purpose. Reclaiming one's life by recognizing what our purpose is, and that's what the exercise of that workshop is about, is reclaiming our purpose from the brainwash of the culture. And then stepping into how do I align my purpose with my life, both my primary, because there are two levels of purpose in that workshop, my primary and secondary. And if I'm not living my primary, secondary purpose, I'm not functioning as a human being. I'm functioning as an automaton, a servant of the king. And that's basically what kings want. And you go back into the ancient scriptures where the creator was, probably better heard by most people. And there was a clamor from the people, make us a king, make us a king. Samuel goes to the creator and says, hey, these people want a king. And the creator says to Samuel, and I think it's a pretty good and pretty accurate story of how it unfolded. And the creator says to Samuel, well, Sam, that's what they want. Give it to them. But I'll tell you what, and there's a whole list of, well, here's what's going to happen. Their men are going to go off to be killed in war. Their women are being used as servants, blah, 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 And he said, if that's what you want. And so Samuel said, okay, we'll make you a king. And in that moment, people who bought into that king game totally and completely lost their human lives. And reclaiming it is a challenge. And you look and, basically there are a lot of people. There's one particular justice, I don't think many people know this, but there's one particular justice on the Supreme Court who literally received, and this is totally and completely against the Constitution, against the law of the land, received a knighthood from a foreign monarch that wants to reestablish king rule in the world. There's actually a justice on the Supreme Court who went and accepted a knighthood from them. The movement is going for it, right? Let's have a king. We want a king. It's kind of the same movement. Don't make us be responsible. Don't make me look. So being able to see that means I have the brain cells for it. So what do? I do correction in me. When enough people show up with that correction, then the whole game is going to change. Critical mass, the leavening that leavens a whole loaf, to become the leavening for a a truly liberty-minded society of people who live in respect of neighbors, who function as love toward neighbors, towards self, toward their children, toward their family systems, towards the culture at large. But enough people have to, once you recognize we were given the power of creatorship, enough people have to show up with that in order for us to create that. And we've been pretty deeply brainwashed in another direction. And that's why it is such a deep work to clean it up and to become one who literally is in alignment with that and can bring that energy to bear on the world of insanity. Because the tendency is to get lost in the world of insanity, thinking that it's the cause of the pain that I'm feeling. But it's not the cause of the pain that I'm feeling. The cause of the pain that I'm feeling is there's an energy in me, in my tissue structure, that doesn't belong in me. And until I forgive that, it's going to tend to run my life because I hide it from myself. No, they did it to me. And now in hiding, I take the very thing that is most offensive to my own human life and tissue structure, and I totally disable myself to change it because I blame everybody else for it. That's why that religion, we need to step away from that one world universal religion of blame, shame, guilt, fault. And the genius of the man who showed up with a tool that said, here's how you do it, is, to me, monumental. Like the real application of it. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. If you have a thought or a comment, we've got a minute or two left. Push your mute button. Say amen or, well, what about? Or
a little different topic, but starting tomorrow and then all next week, the show is going to be pre-recorded both on Podbean, and we have a friend who is also going to show the videos on Zoom. I don't know that whether he'll be, clicking people in for comments or anything. He's just going to be showing a video, but it'll also be on Podbean. So you'll be able to pick it up either place tomorrow and all next week while we're in the intensive.
Yay, thanks for remembering to mention that, Jean. It's cool that we have both of those options available. And that Zoom has become our platform of expression at this point. We appreciate everybody joining us. If this makes sense to you, please grab a link from the YouTube channel and pass it on to somebody and invite them to participate. Grab the instructions for how to access Zoom and send them to everybody you know. In the meantime, create the best year out of your eternal life. Blessings. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.